Hi, it's Peter Temple here, and this is the market report for April the 11th. Well, we've got a really interesting week coming up. We are looking at the top tick sometime in the very near future. Now, we've got a cycles turn date coming up of the 13, 14, 15, which is next week, and we have another one on the 29th. So the first thing we're doing is looking at the April 13th, 14th, and 15th, as that could be a very possible turn. Now, the interesting thing is I want to start with currencies today because I want to show you a theme that I see and I've been seeing setting up for quite some time now, and it really seems to be coming to a culmination. Whether it finishes this week, I think it will, or next week, I'm not quite sure, but let's look at the turn date and let's see how all of these different currencies and the equities are all coming together at the same time for a major turn. So this is the US dollar, Canadian dollar. And this is a 4-hour chart. And I've been watching this. Actually, I'm short right now. I got short just at this fourth wave turn here. And this is heading down. I think we're going to get down to the bottom here. But looking at the entire wave, we have an A, B, C, 3 waves. And these are in fives. You can see the 5 waves here. And you can see the 5 waves here, which is pretty typical. I had thought we were going to end here at the, usually what you do when you look for the length of a C wave, there's a few places you can look. You take the length of the A wave and then you extrapolate that to 1.68 times that, and you will typically get a low here. So that was one of the places we could have gone to. Then we have the previous fourth wave level. I'm not going to back this out, but this is of the wave going up. This is the previous fourth wave level here, and we actually came down and touched that. But what we have here is an ending diagonal. So I'm looking at this actually coming down to the 38% level, and you can see the big chart. I've put that in the post so you can see how this lines up. But this was from the very bottom of this chart. You'll see that this is the 38% retrace level, which in a major fourth wave, which is where I see this as being, that would be the level that we are looking at. And I'm going to show you the same thing happening on the euro. The euro US dollar is that we're looking at the 38% level again, I think, and that would make everything work. So I'm expecting this wave to come down to finish off this ending diagonal. Then it should turn back and we're going into a very large fifth wave here, and that would be a terrific trade if you didn't make this one already. I had actually called the bottom of this or the top of this when it happened at the beginning of January. So that sort of lined up with the changes in the equities market. As you remember, it topped on January 29th, just a week later. Anyway, so that's the US dollar, Canadian dollar. Switching over to the euro US dollar, this is the daily chart. And I'm sure most of you, if you've been with me for any amount of time, are certainly familiar with this very large correction that we've had, all up in 3 waves. And although I've been very good at being able to give you all the turns of this, it looked like it was motive for a while and everything managed to measure out properly. And then just in here, it suddenly turned on me and it became not a motive wave, but a corrective wave. So I know this is correcting up. Where it's going to end is the big question. And for a while I'd had this in a triangle. Well, it burst through the triangle, but it's moving very slowly. And I've now got this as a possible second wave. But my problem with that, and it always has been, is that this wave down does not look like a first wave. It looks like a wave in 3. And for that reason, I suspect this is going to go right back up here and negate this little 2 that you see here and go up and create a top here at the 38% retrace. We tried to get there here. We didn't quite make it. And this time we will either do a double top or I think what is actually going to happen is we're going to make it and get that 38% retrace and then head down in a very large fifth wave. Again, a wonderful trade if you're going there. This trade I don't like because it's moving so slowly and it's just so up and down, and I'm not positive that we're going there, but I'm pretty sure based on what I see happening with the Canadian dollar and also the US equities. So that's my take on what's happening with the euro, and this week or in the very near future, we're going to see this. We're going to see a resolution to this. The other thing that I often see at the end of these things is you do get a big spike up here, and the dollar is really in control of this market. So what it does, the rest of the market is going to follow. Now let's go look at the S&P 500. Now this is really interesting. I've made some changes to the the labeling on the chart. And so this is what I want to talk to you about next, and I want you to keep in mind what is happening with the Canadian dollar and the euro. And also, if you were to go look, the Australian dollar as well. And I haven't really looked at the pound, but I'm sure that it would have a similar configuration. So we had the top up here. This was in August of last year. And it came down, which I've always thought was the first wave because I actually watched the count as it came down and it looked quite motive. And I have measured the waves and they measure out quite appropriately. Then we had this very obvious ABC up. And we had what I called a truncation here. And I've been saying all along that this either it's a truncation or this is a three-wave move down, and I'm now going with a three-wave move down, and I'm going to show you why. This wave up looks like it's targeting this top here, and this would make this a double-pronged second wave, which is very typical in a bear market where you have an extreme move down coming, and this would be looking at a third wave down coming. So I look at this and I go, boy, this thing, based on what the Canadian dollar is doing and the euro and everything else, it seems to me that we're headed up here and in a little fifth wave, and we could spike quite quickly to get up to the top here. And so this might happen this week. It might also happen on the 29th, which is another cycle turn date. And so right now we're looking for this top tick, and then this should turn down in a third wave, which will probably take the Dow down to somewhere around 10,000 and the S&P down into the 1200s. So this is an opportunity not to be missed. This is what we would call a flat. So it's three waves up, three waves down, and five waves up. This actually isn't a motive five waves, so get the thing out of your mind where we would actually see this come down as a second wave and go up again. This wave here was not a valid first wave. This is not a second wave. It did not come down far enough. So it looks like it's an ABC with a fifth wave up here as probably part of this C wave, and we will top at the top here and head down. That's my take on this. I'm going to zoom in and take a look at the wave structure a little closer in to see what's happening. Here's the 30-minute chart. I've shown this chart quite a bit. This is updated, and you can see this is all of the C wave of this second wave here of the S&P 500. And it's getting a little busy here because I've got all of the numbers and letters. You can look at this closely to see that we're actually in the fifth and final wave up here, and we've had a set of five waves up. And the reason I say that is this did not overlap here, so that I can't really call this an ending diagonal, but I think that the overall structure here lends itself to that. And I'm going to zoom in one more time and show you why. But these waves up, there's a 1, 2 here, and then a very big spike here, which makes this little wave here a 3. This looks like a 3 because there was no obvious fourth and fifth. And this wave here, if you zoom in, looks like a 3. So I think this overall structure is going to end up being an ending diagonal, which would mean we would have a wave up here and then a down and another wave up to be able to draw a line, a diagonal line up to the top here. And this would lead me to believe, as the larger degree chart and the Canadian dollar and the euro, that we're all going up to this double top, and that everything is going to do it together and everything is going to fall down together. And that's what I'm looking at. And how quickly that happens, I'm not quite sure. But as I said, we're looking at a little later this coming week. So it's going to be a really interesting week. Let's zoom in one more time just into this structure here, just to show you what I'm seeing as a close-up. So here we are zoomed in to the S&P 500 in a 10-minute chart. And this shows you the fifth wave, the final fifth of the fifth, and what's happening here in terms of the structure. I had a 1, 2 here, a larger 1, 2, and this leads us to a large third wave here, which you can see the top of here, in 5 waves. There's the substructure. We did not have the fourth wave overlapping, so I couldn't really call this an ending diagonal. It's just a first wave up. Now, if this continues up in a third wave here, because we've had another smaller fourth here, which did not overlap with the first wave, as you can see, almost, but not quite. So it's still valid. And so this wave going up, if this was actually a third wave going up here, and it's 1.6 times the length of this first wave, that actually takes us to 2120. If you extrapolate, you can see my Fibonacci tool here. So that would take us to 2120, And that is actually the previous top of that second wave, which I showed you in the larger chart. All these charts are in the post, so you can take a good look at them and see why I think this is happening. The other thing of note here is that this wave up that we had on Friday, Thursday, Friday, is this also looks to be in three waves. So this one also leads me to think that this is an ending diagonal rather than 5 waves up. So it would be 5 waves, but just a slightly different configuration. We would have overlapping waves, and this wave would go up in 5 waves, or sorry, 3 waves rather than 5. So it would go up here, turn down, and a large one here, so that we would be able to draw a line across here and have actually an overthrow up to the very top here, and then we'd have a very dramatic top and a turn down immediately. So we'll follow this as the week goes. It's going to tell us, I think, quite quickly here what we're expecting, but we are going up. This is still the direction of this wave. So again, as I say, really pivotal week. We're looking for that top tick. We're very close, and we're looking for a huge opportunity on the downside. So great trading, and I'm going to be fairly close to the market this week.